Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canon KZN Disabled Open Players Meeting. Delighted today to be joined by a trio of guests, beginning with our esteemed SADGA director, Peter Vervey, also the reigning Team South winning captain, and then we've got Carmen Oostenbrink, our longtime interpreter. Bridging the divide between the hearing and the deaf. And finally, we have our rules official, Ines Marais. Guys, thank you very much for joining us this evening. So I think let's just get straight into the questions. So I received a question earlier today, Ines, which you can answer, and it says, is one allowed to play off the senior tees in the Open?
Yeah, Craig, thanks very much. What we have done, and if the guys look at the terms of the competition that was sent to them, we had to make sure that the event complies with all the requirements of EDGAR and also the world ranking system, so that players can pick up their points, obviously for world ranking purposes. They prescribe a handicap index of 18.4 as the maximum for those guys that, and lower, obviously, for those guys that will play in the stroke play event, and then from 18.5 up to 29.3 for those guys playing stable fit. They also require that everybody plays off the same tees. So what you have to have enough players off the same tees for ranking points. And to make it less confusing to everyone, the stroke play guys on 18.4 and lower will play off the yellow tees, the club tees, and the rest of the group, the stable fit group, will play off what was called the old senior tees, or the blue tees as we know them now, while lady players will play off the so-called red tees. That makes it consistent for everyone. We then adhere to the requirements for world ranking points. And what players must understand is that the categories are handicap indexes. Now, there are no handicap indexes by now in South Africa. We've been doing it for 2 years. So when we get to a course like Mount Edgecombe, Natal 1, or any of the other events, you look at your handicap stroke that you will have for that specific course that we are playing. The index will not change. Your handicap stroke may change. I know there are quite a few players that are playing in more than one of the events. It may differ a little bit from one course to the other because it's about the course ratings. But that's why we've decided to let the stable fit guys play off the blue tees, the old sort of called senior tees, and the ladies of the red tees. And that's how the tournaments will be run all over the country.
Thank you very much. That was a very, very detailed answer, and I think you've probably covered my second question, which was someone expressed concern that, they may be in one category, i.e. playing stableford in the first event, and then if their course handicap changes between that and the second event, would they still be eligible would they have to change to stroke play, or how would that work?
Yeah. Craig, the point is, when we talk about whether a guy can change from one event to another, would be about the handicap index, the 18.4. That's the magic line.
Okay, got you.
And the Americans talk about on the bubble. So anybody around 18 to 19, 18.45, if they play between events and their handicap goes out and they get to a new event and they're more than 18.4 as an index, they will then play in the stable fit division, although they might have played in Mount Edgecombe on the stroke play. Now, I've spoken to Lily as well, who's the tournament director. If a guy should win, let's say Mount Edgecombe on the stroke play division, his handicap goes out in the next few weeks. He comes and plays in Cape Town or wherever, and he's now higher than the 80.4 index. He has to play. He can't play in the stroke play division. He has to play in the stableford division. He wins that as well. He obviously then gets invited to the Champion of Champions in Swartkop in November. He would need to select which event he will be playing in as the champion.
Sure.
We don't see that happening, but maybe someone can surprise us. I don't know.
Yeah, cool. And then the third question, which I'll answer, is: will golfers be allowed to remove flag sticks? And the answer to that is yes. Every morning before the first groups go off, we will sanitize the flag sticks using Zuno sanitizer, and yeah, you will be able to remove flag sticks throughout your round. And as to whether or not they will be preferred lies, that is a decision that the tournament committee will make on the eve of the event. Am I correct in saying that, Ines?
Yeah, that's correct. Obviously, one would like to play any golf tournament without having preferred lies. But if the circumstances, there were a lot of rain, a lot of mud, it doesn't make it, equity comes into play, and a player on the fairway might find his ball with a lot of mud or whatever, then a committee would obviously put in preferred lies, but we'll make that decision once we see the course and the weather conditions and whether it's necessary to do that. And we'll obviously do that because we need to have a tournament that's fair to players.
Yep. And Peter, would you mind telling us what the penalty is for a player who enters the event but does not arrive at registration and or to participate in the event?
Yeah, so thank you, Craig. So the penalty for that would be R1,000, and we're very clear on it. It is for someone not arriving without a good reason.
So the next question is, and again, Peter, it's for you. When will registration take place for the event?
Registration will take place this Sunday from 3 p.m. till 5 p.m. Please take note that you can make alternative arrangement if you can't register on this Sunday, and the contact person for that is Zahn.
And guys, Zahn's email address is zahn, ZHAAN @sadga.co.za. And then this I'll answer. What is the COVID protocol around swapping scorecards? So I chatted to Lily just before the meeting started, and Mount Edgecombe's golf director, Kevin Stone, advised that each player should keep a scorecard for the entire group and verify after the completion of each hole what each player scored. And apparently that is the sort of COVID practice under European Tour playing conditions is at the moment, and apparently it's working quite successfully. So then, Peter, we come to you again. Please touch on any other COVID-19 protocols that are in place at the event, and more specifically, must players be tested prior to the event?
Thanks, Craig. So no, players don't need to be tested before the event. Obviously, if you show symptoms, we would ask that you get tested and actually not attend the event. But SATCA will have our own screening area at Mount Edgecombe Club. So please understand, even if the club has got their screening area, SATCA will have a very specific screening area where we will do daily screening. We're treating the tournament as people arriving and leaving straight after the event. So it's just critical from that point of view.
Yeah, and then let me see what the so Peter, again we stick with you. Would you mind touching on what the protocol around caddies for the event is?
Yes. So if you haven't registered a caddy that you will personally be bringing with you. You have to book, pay, and use non-Edgecombe Country Club caddies. No caddies from any other golf club will be allowed at the event.
Okay, sure. And then from a local rules standpoint, guys, there are numerous areas on the course that are marked with white paint. These are considered ground under repair areas, and Ines, correct me if I'm wrong, but players can take relief without penalty from those areas.
Absolutely, Craig. That's one of your basic free relief procedures that you take out of a ground under repair, or a GOR as we call it, area. The players note, and I think they know, you're not obliged to take relief. You might have a good lie in a place like that, and then prefer to play a ball like that, but it's optional and it's free. Nearest point of complete relief, you drop your ball and you carry on.
Sure. And guys, just before we carry on, I'm gonna get to the questions and the comments at the end. But there were questions that I received prior to the meeting around how the course is going to play, and again, Kevin Stone provided some great insight into what players can expect from the woods under the tournament conditions. So he says, and I quote, "The woods and the lakes, which will be played for the Watches Unlimited Day, are very different in nature. The woods is open, while the lakes is narrow. Both courses are not very long, but favor the straighter hitters, and the greens will be running at between 10.5 and 11 on the stump meter." So that's a pretty brisk pace. So Peter, again, we return to you. Will golfers be required to cover the cost of halfway?
So there will be a grab and go ciabatta roll and drink that will be served at halfway. So yeah.
Cool.
That's the best way to answer that one.
And are spectators allowed, Peter?
So very simple answer, no. There are no spectators allowed at the event. It's part of the COVID regulations. I think, Craig, one of the questions that I see earlier on also that probably can be added to that is post-round protocol for players, where the golfers will be allowed to socialise, and it's also a no, definitely not. We, as I said earlier, we see this tournament as play, live play, and leave immediately afterwards. So no socialising after we finish your round, and definitely no spectators.
Sure. And Ines, will rangefinders and GPSs be allowed during tournament play?
Yeah, Craig, yes, absolutely, and that is the hard card. Now, this is something new. If I could just elaborate a little bit, because it's new. Because we have a series of events, what we have done from the rules side is to draw up local rules which will be applicable to each event. And we call it the hard card. That's your card that you keep with you. And I urge players to read it. I know they've received it, and then also to keep it with them while they're on course. And your hard card rule 16 specifically says that rangefinders are allowed. Obviously, you're not allowed, as per the rules of golf, to use it to gather your slope or something like that. But you may use a rangefinder for distance. Now, Craig, if I may, when players play golf, one of the things when you get to the course, to me, that's quite important, is to understand the rules that you will be playing under for that specific tournament and that specific course. And in that effect, if you look at the hard card, those are rules that are generally applicable to all courses, no matter where you play. If there are pylons and you hit the pylon, you must replay your shot. That's what the hard card says. If you get to, and there may not be pylons in Mount Edgecombe, I don't think there will be. There might be in PE. So, it depends on where you play. Some of them are not necessarily applicable. But if you get to a newly sodded area where they put sods in, It's not marked as GUR because sometimes they're not marked, but you lie in the seam. The hard card says you can get relief there. So if you get to a green and your ball is lying behind one of these sprinkler heads and you want to putt, as you're off the green, you're just off the green, the hard card says you're allowed to move your ball if you're within 2 club lengths of that sprinkler head, and the sprinkler head is within 2 club lengths of the green. So it's important to look at your hard card and understand those rules. However, in addition to that, when you get to the course in the morning, we will give you what we call then the additional local rules, which is very specific for the course that you will be playing. Mount Edgecombe, I know that on the, I think it's the 14th or the 13th hole, there are drop zones. Now I'm only going there next Sunday, and I'll look at the course and confirm the local rules before. But if there's a drop zone is optional. Use it to your advantage if you can. Mount Edgecombe has houses, so we will definitely say something in additional local rules about the out of bounds where the property earth lines are. So we'll say that. So yes, so to me, a golfer needs to understand the hard card. He gets to the course, he takes his local rules, he reads that, he clears out anything that he might not understand before he gets to the course, and then he can play. Because the rules of golf are there to help you progress from tee to green on every single hole, and to help you when you're in difficult positions. And if a golfer understands the rules, you know what options and what choices he can take. So yes, those are some of the areas that's important.
Thank you very much for that very detailed answer. So let's get into a couple of the questions in the comments. And Peter and Ines, I think I may need your help in answering this particular one, which is, can players share carts? Now, I don't know if that is a decision that has been made yet, but if any lights can be shed on that, that would be great.
So, Ines, we're happy to come on as well. But I think that's one that I think it's one that we will create. We'll decide closer to the tournament.
Okay.
We will definitely have some very specific COVID regulations as far as the tournament is concerned. So I see it's Lance that asked that question. So we will be able to answer that in detail closer to the time. And sure. Just hot off the press in from our tournament director is that all cards sharing. So I think Lily has answered that one for us.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. And then our executive director has also got in on the conversation and says, what is the size of the groups, 3 or 4 balls? Ines, would you be able to shed light on that?
I haven't had the final tee times, etc. from Lily, but I think it's going to be 4 balls, Peter. She said it's going to be 4 balls.
Yes, I believe that would be the case. Again, once we have the final field, if there's any changes, we can communicate that. But my understanding is it's 4 balls.
Okay, and then the final question I have here is from Donnie or Don. But Donnie, if you re-listen to the podcast, we covered the protocol that we are going to implement from a scorecard standpoint, and we will, if need be, we will make changes close to the time or whatever once further discussions have been held, if there is going to be any change at all regarding scorecard procedures. But guys, for anyone watching, if you have any last minute questions, please leave them in the comments section now. Otherwise, we'll probably adjourn the meeting. But let's. Hey, just hold on. Please explain. Number 7, Ines.
I will explain number 7.
Thank you.
Number 7, thank you. Number 7 just says limiting when stroke made from putting green must be replaced. Model local rule D7 is in effect and modifies exception 2 to rule 11.1b. That's the very interesting one where when you putt and a ball lips and it hits your foot or your club that you just made the putt with, and that happened twice on the PGA Tour, and that's why this interpretation was brought in. You were in the past allowed under rule 11.1b to replace the ball and replace like a mulligan. You could replay the shot. The advantage to the player is absolutely too big. So this rule was brought in to say that if a putt should lip and then hit your foot coming back or your club with which you've made the putt, that shot is completed and you then play the ball from where it then lies. You don't get the replay option. That's 7. That's brand new. That was earlier this year. The RNA and USGA brought that in as a model local rule.
Okay,
it shouldn't
sure.
happen often.
Yeah. And then Craig asks, he says, practice rounds. I presume the question is, are practice rounds allowed? Innes, I presume the answer to that is yes.
Yes, Craig. Obviously, practice rounds before the tournament starts. What is important, however, and that we'll see on the hard card as well, at rule. I'm just getting to the rule. Rule 15 deals with practice, which says that we're probably going to play in the morning, a morning field, let's say on Monday. Now, Monday afternoon, the guys are free. They are not allowed to go and play the course again because they're still going to play on Tuesday. They're allowed to practice on the practice areas, the driving range or wherever, the practice putting area, but they're not allowed to go and play. If they play on Tuesday and they finish their round and the tournament is done, they can play whatever they like. And obviously they can practice on Sunday and they can practice on Saturday, but not before the tournament starts on Monday and not afterwards. And that's on the course, not the practice areas, the course itself. That's limited.
Sure. Let's see, I think Lance has got another question. Will players be able to help one another? Pulling out of the bunker means physically touching one another, etc. So I think he means like if you have an ailment or whatever, if you're an amputee, not an ailment, but if you're a leg amputee and you need help out of the bunkers, is that, I'm sure that would be allowed.
Well, I can answer that one because we've had it at previous tournaments. Yes, by all means, obviously, players will just be encouraged to sanitize. But by all means, it's going to help the speed of play and also protect our players. So yes, it will be allowed.
Sure. And then the next question is from Donnie again. So no practice putts after the putting. I mean, I think even I'm qualified to answer that. I think not. Innes?
No, we haven't limited that. Sorry, it's just playing a practice round after you finished your round. Normally, Craig, in the Sunshine Tour, the hard card specifically says, and that's because of pace of play and other things, you're not allowed to practice on the green that you've just. Sorry, let me just reiterate. The rules of golf allow you to make a practice putt once you completed the hole before you move on to the next tee box. On the Sunshine Tour and the PGA Tour, etc., you'll never see the guys doing that. I'm not looking match play. You'll never see them doing that because they're not allowed to do that. That's for pace of play purposes.
Yes.
So you're not, you know, if there's no one coming or whatever, and you want to just see why did I really miss that putt, and you want to do it again, you can do it. Just don't hold up play. You're not allowed to play out of a bunker. You can practice. You can putt. And then you can chip on the next tee box as per normal golf rules. That's not limited and that's not taken away. It's playing around on the course that you can't do after you've played your first round.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Let me just see. I don't think there are any other questions for the moment. But yeah, I think perhaps if there are any further questions at any later stage, Innocent and Peter, maybe I can pass those along to you, and then if you wouldn't mind just sending a brief answer through to me about what
absolutely
about the procedure. But
Craig, can
obviously, yeah, go for
Yeah,
it.
can I just for information's sake, I will be at the tournament, and we have also 3 of the local the women president of Golf in Natal, Sue Rower, and 2 of her colleagues that are qualified rules officials. We will be 4 rules officials at the tournament next Monday and Tuesday. So we will be available. Remember, a marker. Anybody else in your 4-ball is a marker for your scorecard. They can't give you permission to do certain things. They're not rules officials. So if you're unsure about something and something's gone wrong, and you're worried that you might do the wrong thing, please call a rules official. We'll have radios, we'll have telephones, we'll tell you on the local rules how to get hold of us. If you don't get hold of anyone, you want to play on now, and people are waiting behind you or whatever, you can still opt to do the 2-ball rule under Rule 20, where you can say to your fellow players, guys, I'm not sure if I can drop here or not. I'm going to play 2 balls. I'm going to play my original ball, and I can play a drop ball, and I want the drop ball to count or whatever. And then we'll sort it out after you score for both balls. You keep the score separate, and when you get to the end of your round, you come to the committee and say, this is what happened, this is what I've done. Can I get which ball counts, and what was my score for that hole? And we'll help you. But there'll be 4 of us around. You'll see us around, and we're there to help you and help you have a great round.
Sure. And then another question from Dani is, will there be pin placing information?
Peter, I don't know if you do that. I'll speak to Lily about that. We haven't decided yet. I don't know who puts out the pins. Probably Kevin, the local director, will put out the pins, etc. We'll see if we can get pin positions to the guys. Although once the fact that you can use rangefinders obviously makes it less of a problem because you can shoot exactly where the pin is and how far it is, etc. But we'll see if we can get pin positions out.
Yeah, spot on.
Cool. Yeah, I think that should more or less do it. So thank you very much to everyone for tuning in, and thank you, Peter, Ines, and Carmen, for your time. Really appreciate it, and all the best to everyone playing in the event.
Thank you. We'll see you in Durban. Thank you.
We'll see you
Thanks,
then.
guys.